Hey, everybody. It's Allison Gill. I'm here by myself today because something just happened in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I wanted to just kind of quickly explain this so that we can get out in front of it and kind of quell some issues that some folks might have. So, as you all probably know, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth tried to deploy the National Guard to Portland, Oregon, saying that it's a war zone. It's a ravaged war zone. Hi, everybody. And the city of Portland and the state of Oregon sued and asked for an emergency hearing on an emergency restraining order to get a temporary restraining order to block the deployment of the National Guard to Portland. And they were doing that based on the memo and that Trump released to send National Guard troops to Oregon. And so what happened is Judge Emmergut, who is a Trump appointee, called an emergency hearing. And in that hearing on Saturday, um, I can just read it here from what the Ninth Circuit says. They said on October 4th, the district court granted the plaintiff's motion and issued a temporary restraining order blocking implementation of the memorandum. The memorandum being the Trump memo that sends, or the Pete Hegseth memo that sends the National Guard to Portland. And in an emergency motion, they sought an administrative stay for the district court's October 4th order and a stay of that order pending appeal. So that's the Trump administration going to the Ninth Circuit and asking them to stay what Judge Emmergut did. So to block her block of the National Guard. They go on to say on October 5th, the plaintiffs filed an amended complaint and a second motion seeking a second temporary restraining order to enjoin the government from deploying members of the California National Guard to Oregon. The district court granted that plaintiff's motion and entered a second temporary restraining order enjoining the deployment of federalized members of the National Guard in Oregon. It says here, and this is the important part, defendants have not appealed or challenged the second temporary restraining order, and it is not before us. That's important because you're going to see a lot of news outlets saying that the Ninth Circuit, a 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit, has stayed Judge Emmergut's order blocking Trump from deploying the National Guard troops to Oregon. But the Ninth Circuit is only talking about the first temporary restraining order. During the second temporary restraining order hearing, Judge Emmergut, she expanded the meaning of her temporary restraining order and the scope, I should say, of her temporary restraining order. Because the first one was just, you can't send the Oregon National Guard to Portland. And that's when the Trump administration said, okay, we'll send the California National Guard. And when Gavin Newsom jumped on the lawsuit and said, no, we want to fight that, that's when the Trump administration said, okay, well, we'll send the Texas National Guard because, Greg Abbott down in Texas won't stop us like Gavin Newsom will. And Judge Emmergut said, no, you're plainly skirting the spirit of my order. My order wasn't about which National Guard got sent to Portland. My order was about the fact that you shouldn't be sending any National Guard to Oregon, to Portland specifically, because there's nothing on the ground that warrants the National Guard. That is the crux of my ruling here. That is the fact that the National Guard is not needed. There's no emergency on the ground. And that this could be in violation of Title 10, the 10th Amendment, sovereignty, state sovereignty, and something called 12406, which is a different rule that allows the deployment of the National Guard. So I want everyone just to be clear, with the Ninth Circuit staying her first temporary restraining order, it does not stop her second temporary restraining order. That is still in place. So the National Guard, and like I said, she expanded it to say, fine, if you want to play word games with me, and, if I say no Oregon National Guard and you pull out California and Texas, then I'm going to issue a second restraining order that says you cannot send any National Guard to Portland. Fine, if you want to play that game with me, Mr. Hamilton, that was the name of the DOJ lawyer. So that second temporary restraining order is still in place, and it was not before the Ninth Circuit. So when you see headlines that the Ninth Circuit has blocked the judge's block of the National Guard, they have, but only in that very first one, which is kind of moot now, right? Because she issued a broader second restraining order to say no National Guard. I don't care where they're from, DC, any state. She didn't even bother to list them out because she didn't want to give the Trump administration an opportunity to find a different loophole and maybe go with a territory's National Guard instead of a state's National Guard. So she didn't even play with the language. She's just like, you can't send any National Guard to Portland in that second temporary restraining order, which was not before the Ninth Circuit. So the Trump administration would need to file, and I haven't seen it yet, but they would need to file a stay. They would have to file for an emergency stay with the Ninth Circuit for the second temporary restraining order in order for the Guard to be able to be deployed to Portland. So as it stands, even though the Ninth Circuit has blocked her first block, as it stands, the Trump administration cannot send any National Guard to Portland, Oregon. So I just wanted to clear that up and make sure that everybody knows that, so that when you see the headlines that the Ninth Circuit has administratively stayed Judge Emmerget's temporary restraining order stopping Trump from sending National Guard troops to Portland, they still can't go. And her second temporary restraining order remains in place. So someone's asking, do I know why the Ninth Circuit stayed the first temporary restraining order? I don't. Usually you can't file an appeal to the Circuit Court of Appeals for a temporary restraining order. So I'm not sure, but they're going to have a hearing. They're going to have oral arguments on that first restraining order tomorrow. And it might just be the Ninth Circuit saying, hey, the first temporary restraining order is moot. If you want to actually stop the Guard, you're going to have to file for the second restraining order, which still stands. And they might throw in a thing there. I mean, there's 2 Trump judges and one, I think, Clinton judge on this 3-judge panel. So the 2 Trump judges might be like, yeah, do that, and we'll totally grant that. And then we might hear something from the Clinton judge that says you can't actually appeal a temporary restraining order. Come back and see us when Judge Emmerget issues what's called a preliminary injunction or a motion for summary judgment permanent injunction, right? A more permanent, like an actual permanent injunction blocking any National Guard from being sent to Portland. Then come and appeal to us. But I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to say tomorrow. My gut tells me they're just going to say, yeah, this is fine. We can throw this out because it's moot, because there's a new second temporary restraining order in place. And it covers any National Guard, which would include Oregon. So your question is moot. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. But again, it doesn't matter because it's that second temporary restraining order that blocks any National Guard from being called up to Portland. So we'll see. And as I have said on previous live episodes, talking to like Adam Klasfeld, Anna Bauer, Wajaha Ali, a temporary restraining order lasts 14 days, and it would give Judge Emmerget time to consider a more permanent restraining order, which is called a preliminary injunction, or, like I said, a permanent injunction, which are appealable to the Ninth Circuit. And if she can't get to that decision within 14 days, she can extend the temporary restraining order, I believe, one time for an additional 14 days while she considers a more permanent ban on National Guard troops being called up from anywhere to Portland. So again, I just wanted to get that all out there and make sure that we head this off at the pass, and so that everyone's not kind of taken in by, I'm sure, what the headlines will be, where, again, they like to say, Judge blocks, Ninth Circuit blocks Emmerget's order to block the National Guard. The second temporary restraining order is still in place, everybody. And it says it right here. The defendants have not appealed or challenged the second temporary restraining order, and it is not before us. So anyway, just wanted to jump on and let you know about that. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the breakdown. Really appreciate you. Stay tuned for more on this particular developing story, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.